Hi, a viewer called Paul asked would I be to have a look at this dead Sony Soundbar that's shown no signs of life. Let's plug it into the dim bulb tester and we'll just see if we get any signs of life out of it. We should get a couple of LEDs light up here. The dim bulb tester isn't lighting up, so it doesn't appear to be drawing any current, and we've got no power lights on it. Let's just check we're getting power out of the power lead first. And yes, we're getting 240 volts out of the power lead, so the power lead's fine. Right, let's take it apart and see if we can figure out what's wrong with it. So to disassemble it, it looks like we need to remove these screws on the back of it here. So let's start removing those. It looks like there's even more screws in these holes here. Well, that was certainly a lot of screws. Right, let's see if it wants to come apart. Looks like we've got a small ribbon cable down here. Just remove that. And I'll just try zooming down a bit. So this appears to be the power supply board. Looks like the power comes in here. Looks like we've got a bridge rectifier there, smoothing capacitor. So this is the live part of the power supply here, and this is the isolated part. So as long as you're touching this part, you should be relatively safe, but not this part here. Let's just zoom down a bit more and we'll see if we can see anything obvious. No, is that a dry joint there? That's a bit hard to tell because it looks like we've got some conformal coating here. Just wasn't sure whether that was a bad connection, but it actually doesn't look too bad. I think it was just the reflection off the camera. I still might go over those two in any case just to be sure. That looks like the little switching IC there. Looks like we've got a little opto isolator for feedback. And that's the switching MOSFET that switches the transformer. Looks like we have an output diode here, a couple of capacitors for smoothing. And I think that's pretty much it. Next, a little bit of circuitry over here, which might be for standby or something. Actually, that goes to the LEDs, I think. So I think that's just controlled from this part here. So that's not really anything to do with the power supply. So I think the next thing we'll do is we'll power it back up and we'll just see what voltages we're getting where. Right, I'm just going to switch the dim bulb tester on. And let's just check that we are getting power to the bridge rectifier here. And indeed we are. So let's check we're getting DC on the smoothing cap, which we are. So let's see what we're getting on the output. Let's try and get the meter back in shot there. So we're not getting anything on the output here. So the problem does seem to be on the power supply. So I think the next thing we'll do is we'll take the power supply out and we'll have a look on the other side just to check the condition of the capacitors, just in case any of them are domed or leaking or anything. So I just want to check that there's no power in the mains cap first. And there still is. So I'm just going to use the capacitor discharger that Dan Wilson made. So we'll just discharge the capacitor. That should be safe to work on now. Yeah, there's about 4 volts there now. So let's remove this power supply. Let's try and unplug this connector here first. Which might be easier said than done. So it looks like these silver connections here are just from the amplifier module and just passing it through to the tweeter and the speaker just down here. Let's see if this power supply wants to come out now. Right, that's the power supply out. Well, I can't see any sign of damage on this side. Got a little fuse here, but that must be intact because we are getting power up to this point here. So I think we'll check this MOSFET here. But if that was shorted, I would expect a bit more damage, like catastrophic failure around here somewhere. So I don't think it's that. Let's just check it anyway, and we'll just check this 0 ohm resistor. And then I think we'll look at the output side just in case there's something gone wrong there. Let's see if I can get the test meter back in shot as well. Let's just go into diode check. Well, we don't have shorts on the MOSFET. Let's just check this 0 ohm resistor. That seems fine. We do have one of those capacitors there. Let's just try that. I've got rather a low reading there, but that might be across the... It looks like we may have a short. Yeah, we definitely got some kind of short on the output here. So it looks like the problem's actually around here. So what I might do is get this under the microscope because I don't get the meter better in shot. And we'll try removing some of these components and we'll see if we can find out where the short is. Right, got it under the microscope. And I'm just looking at the circuit here. So this is where the AC comes out of the transformer. Comes here. I don't know what this bit's for. Because normally it just goes through the rectifier and then to the output. This side just goes straight to there. So because we've got a short across here and here, the only thing that it could possibly be is this diode. Because if this capacitor was short, we've got resistors here, so we'll be getting a reading of about 33 ohms because we've got two 62s. So if I measure those, because there's two in parallel, we've got 31. And that's what we have across this capacitor here. So if I go into diode check, I don't know whether we'll be able to read that diode. No, we won't, because we've got capacitors across there. So I don't think that diode there is blown. I think that one's actually okay. I think the culprit's this one here. I'm just wondering if I put the thermal camera on it, if it would light up any. So I might just quickly try that, but I'm pretty sure it's that diode. Right, I've got the thermal camera out. And it's not really showing anything. That's where that diode is, just there. It's just showing those resistors getting very slightly warm. And that's about it. Right, I'll switch that back off and we'll get this back under the microscope. We'll try removing that diode and we'll just see if that's the culprit. I've just safely discharged the mains capacitor again. I'm just going to add some flux to this diode here. Looks like there's a big heatsink here as well. So what I'm going to use is some what's called low melt solder to try and remove this. It's solder that's got a pretty low melting point, and you can mix it with this what's called silver solder, and it just makes devices easier to remove. It's good for things like HDMI sockets and USB sockets and the like. And this should come off fairly easily. In theory, anyway. May also be glued on as well. I've had components glued on in the past as well. There we go, what's glued on. Oh, that wasn't budging. There we go, short circuit. So I'll see if I can find a data sheet for this part, and we'll see if we can find a replacement or something to substitute. So I managed to find the data sheet for this diode. I'll just bring it up on the screen so you can have a look. And it's rated at 150 volts at 15 amp. And when I was searching for this, I came across someone else that had a very similar soundbar with exactly the same fault. So I think this might be some kind of weak point in this soundbar. So I've had a search around on my old boards, and what I found is this, which is rated at 300 volts and 20 amp. So twice the voltage and 5 more amps. So what I'm going to do is try and fit this onto the board instead of this. So I'll just test this diode first. So if I go into here, and let's go into diode check, we should get about 0.4 and 0.4. So this is a high speed rectifier diode as well. And obviously this one, I'll just give it back. It's short circuit and this one isn't. Right, let's see if we can manage to fit this one on the board instead of this one. So what I've done is I've used the little grinding pen here, and I've ground away some of the solder mask that was on this area of the board, and also a little bit of the solder mask on here. What I'm planning to do is put some solder on here, and then hopefully this should just sit there like that. And I've still got the heatsink here, so hopefully that should conduct any heat away from this part as well. And hopefully this will actually run cooler, with it being able to handle more voltage and more amps. Right, I'm going to put some solder on this part first. Actually, I might put a bit of flux on there first. So something a bit like that. Let's put a bit more on that leg. So I think that should do. Let's just check if we have a short across these capacitors now. And we don't. I'm just going to give this a little bit of a clean up with some IPA and a toothbrush. Right, so I think we'll plug it in and we'll see if we get any power on the output capacitors. I've got it plugged into the dim bulb tester. I'm just about to switch it on. I've never tried this yet, so I don't know what it's going to do. Hopefully it's going to work and not go bang. But hopefully it shouldn't explode because we've got the dim bulb tester connected to it. And then we'll just see if we get any output on these capacitors. So here goes. Well, it doesn't look like it's doing a lot. But we do indeed have an output. 22 volts. Right. I think we'll get this put back together next and see if it works. Right, I'm just going to put this ribbon cable back in. Like so. I'll sort out this gasket momentarily. I just want to power it up just to see if it comes alive. See if we get any lights on it or anything. Hold on. I haven't got the power lead plugged in. That would help, wouldn't it? It's not going to work when that's not plugged in. Right, we've got some lights. I'll continue putting this back together then, and then we'll try connecting it to a phone or something to see if it works properly. I've just finished putting all of the screws back in, and there was a lot of screws. So I've got it plugged in. Let's just switch it on. It's set to Bluetooth, and I have it paired to my phone here. So let's just connect to it. Connected for audio. And I've got some royalty-free music here. So let's see if that plays. So yes, that seems to be working fine. So this tiny component here stopped the whole soundbar from working. And it wasn't a capacitor this time. So I think we'll call this one a successful repair. So do you think it's a design fault with these? Because there seems to be more than one that's got the exact same fault. So if you think it's a design fault, let me know in the comments below. Right then, if you enjoyed this video, please give it the big thumbs up. If you want to see more like it, please subscribe. Any comments or questions, please leave it in the comment section below. And as always, have a great day. Thanks for watching.